John Miller adjusted his formal diplomatic suit and took a deep breath as he prepared to enter the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The massive doors, carved from what looked like blue crystal, towered 30 feet high. As Earth's senior representative, John had spent the last 3 years on Proxima Centauri, trying to secure humanity a fair position among the stars. Today, the Council would announce their decision about Earth's status in the galactic community. John felt sweat forming on his brow despite the climate-controlled environment. Something felt wrong. The preliminary meetings had become increasingly tense over the past weeks, with the Arcadian representatives growing cold and dismissive. John straightened his shoulders and nodded to his assistant, Mary Wells. Together they walked through the doors as they slid open with a soft humming sound. The council chamber stretched out before them, a vast semicircle with raised platforms where representatives from over 40 spacefaring civilizations sat watching. In the center, elevated above all others, sat the 7 members of the High Council, dominated by the Arcadians who had discovered faster-than-light travel thousands of years before humans had even developed writing. Councillor Xtharion, the 7-armed leader of the Arcadian Empire, stared down at the human delegation with large, unblinking eyes. John took his assigned position at the speaking platform and waited. The chamber fell silent. Xtharion rose to his full height of nearly 9 feet. His voice, translated through the neural implant behind John's ear, came through with perfect clarity. After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony, this council has reached a unanimous decision regarding the status of the species known as humans and their homeworld Earth. John noticed several representatives from the smaller galactic powers shifting uncomfortably. This wasn't a good sign. Humanity has demonstrated remarkable advancement in technology, achieving in mere centuries what took other species millennia. This acceleration rate is concerning. Furthermore, human history reveals patterns of aggression, resource consumption, and territorial expansion that this council finds deeply troubling. John felt his stomach tighten. Mary whispered something beside him, but he couldn't focus on her words. Therefore, by the authority granted to this body by the Galactic Charter, we hereby classify humanity as a Class C subordinate species, effective immediately. The words hit John like a physical blow. Class C subordinate. The classification was only one step above a quarantine civilization. It meant Earth would lose control of its resource management, space exploration capabilities, and military development. Humanity would effectively become a protected but controlled species, like clever children kept under careful watch. Earth representatives have 30 standard cycles to prepare their world for the implementation of oversight protocols. An Arcadian administrative fleet will arrive to begin the transition of authority. Resistance will be met with appropriate measures. John stepped forward, his diplomatic training barely keeping his voice steady. Counselor, with respect, humanity has shown nothing but peaceful intentions since first contact. Our technological development poses no threat to the established order. I formally request a reconsideration of this classification. Xtharion's upper limbs made a dismissive gesture that the translator didn't bother interpreting. The decision is final, Representative Miller. This council has observed how quickly humans adapt and innovate. Your species conquered your entire planet in a fraction of the time it took other races. Your history is filled with warfare and the subjugation of your own kind. We would be negligent to allow such a species' unfettered development among the stars. Other council members nodded in agreement. Only the representatives from the Tellurian Alliance, themselves a relatively young species, showed any sign of sympathy. John tried again. We request time to consult with Earth's leadership before accepting these terms. You may consult, but the decision stands. This session is concluded. With a gesture from Xtharion, the central platform began to lower, signaling the end of the hearing. As John and Mary were escorted from the chamber, he activated his secure communication device. The quantum entanglement technology would allow instant communication with Earth despite the 4 light-year distance. Susan, are you receiving this? He asked quietly. Susan Carter's voice came through clearly. Every word, John. The President. And Joint Chiefs are already in emergency session. Don't say anything else on this channel. Just get to your ship and come home. Back on Earth, Susan Carter stood in the underground command center beneath the lunar base Armstrong. As the newly appointed security director for Earth's combined defense forces, she watched the faces of the world leaders gathered on the screens before her. Most showed shock, some fear, but a few showed something else: determination. Ladies and gentlemen, Susan addressed the emergency council, what we just witnessed confirms what military intelligence has suspected for months. The Arcadians never intended to accept us as equals. President LaValle Wilson, her face grim on the central screen, nodded. Director Carter, what are our options? Susan, a former Navy SEAL who had fought in the Mars Rebellion before being recruited, for diplomatic security, stepped forward. Madam President, I activated Dark Winter protocols the moment the Arcadian representative used the word subordinate. All deep space communication is now running through our quantum network rather than the Council monitored channels. Our military vessels are implementing communication blackout procedures while maintaining full operational readiness. You anticipated this? Asked the European Union President. We prepared for it, Susan corrected. The pattern has been clear. Since we gained access to the Council's historical records, every emerging species with rapid development has been either classified as subordinate or somehow contained. They're afraid of us. In rural Oregon, far from the political centers of power, Frank Howard wiped grease from his hands as he examined the strange device hovering above his workbench. At 58, Frank looked like an ordinary mechanic, with calloused hands and gray hair tied back in a ponytail. Nothing about his modest workshop suggested he was one of the most brilliant minds in dimensional physics. The device, about the size of a basketball, pulsed with a soft blue light as it floated without any visible means of support. Frank made a small adjustment to one of the control panels, and the light shifted to green. His secure phone rang. Howard, he answered gruffly. It's happening, said the voice on the other end. The Council classified us as subordinate. How close are you? Frank looked at the floating device. Project Daedalus is functional in prototype. The principles are sound, but I need another month for full implementation. You have 2 weeks. After that, the Council's oversight fleet arrives. Frank frowned. I can have the core technology ready, but mass production will take longer. Do what you can. If this works, it changes everything. After disconnecting, Frank turned back to his creation. Unlike the faster-than-light drives the Council races used, which bent space in predictable ways, his device created a momentary phase shift between dimensional planes. In theory, it would allow human ships to move through spaces the Council's sensors couldn't even detect, much less track. He placed his hand on the cool metal surface. Guess we're about to find out if you work as well as I think you do, he muttered to the machine. As night fell across North America, similar conversations were happening in secure facilities around the world. In her office overlooking the Pacific, Dr. Patricia Newman reviewed the final simulations for Project Firewall, a system designed to disrupt the quantum communication network the Council relied upon. In the orbital shipyards hidden on the far side of the moon, engineers accelerated work on vessels that incorporated technologies the Council believed impossible for humans to develop. Humanity had been preparing for this moment ever since their scientists had discovered discrepancies in the scientific laws the Council had shared. The aliens had deliberately withheld key insights, attempting to guide human development along controlled paths. What they hadn't counted on was humanity's talent for finding loopholes and thinking outside established paradigms. As dawn broke over Washington, D.C., President Wilson addressed a worried nation. Her words were carefully chosen, revealing nothing of the true preparations underway. Fellow citizens of Earth, today we face a challenge to our sovereignty, but we will meet this challenge with dignity and resolve. The Galactic Council has underestimated our commitment to self-determination. They have declared us subordinate. They will come to regret that decision. William Jones looked like a boring government worker with his plain suits and tidy office at the Global Resource Management Agency. Most people would never guess that he now controlled the largest secret operation in human history. William studied, the secure tablet in his hands showing resource flows across Earth and its colonies. On the surface, everything appeared normal. Dig deeper and a different picture emerged. Critical materials were vanishing from official supply chains and reappearing in shadow facilities. William had spent 15 years building a network of trusted contacts in every major industry. Now that network was the backbone of Operation Rising Tide. A soft chime announced a visitor. His assistant nodded as William looked up. "Director Carter is here." Susan Carter entered without waiting for a formal invitation. She wore a simple, dark blue uniform with minimal insignia. Her short gray hair and direct gaze gave her the appearance of someone who never wasted time or words. "Progress report?" she asked, taking the seat across from William. William passed her the tablet. "We're at 60% of target stockpiles for rare earth elements. Titanium and aluminum processing is ahead of schedule. The lunar facilities are fully converted to stealth protocols. Mars colony is our biggest challenge, too many council observers." Susan nodded as she reviewed the data. "Mars is handling their part. Richard Brown has been moving mining operations underground for months. The council thinks they're just following normal expansion patterns." William raised an eyebrow. "Can we trust the Mars colonists? They've been independent-minded since the rebellion." Susan almost smiled. "That's exactly why we can trust them. Nobody hates outside control more than Martians. They'll never accept being ruled by aliens when they barely tolerated Earth's authority." She returned the tablet. "What about the problem with Helium-3? William tapped a series of commands, bringing up new data. "Solved. We've been skimming 10% from the Jupiter mining platforms and reporting it as processing loss." The Council. "Inspectors don't understand the technology well enough to catch it. We have enough fuel stockpiled to run the fleet at full capacity for 6 months." Susan nodded again, satisfied. "Keep pushing. We need a full year's supply before they arrive." After Susan left, William sent a series of encoded messages to his network of coordinators. On paper, the world was preparing to accept council oversight. In reality, humanity was preparing for something very different. In the cold waters of the North Atlantic, the experimental vessel Northern Lights sliced through the waves without making a sound. The ship looked like a standard research vessel from a distance. Up close, its smooth hull showed no seams or rivets, appearing to be formed from a single piece of dark material that somehow absorbed both light and sound. On the bridge, Captain Lisa Garcia received her new orders via quantum channel. Her eyes widened slightly as she read. "Navigation, set course for Luna Base, deep approach pattern. Engineering, prepare for full submersion test." Her crew moved with practiced efficiency. Most had been handpicked from special forces or advanced research divisions. All understood they were part of something historic. Lisa studied the final section of her orders again. The Northern Light would be the first vessel equipped with Frank Howard's dimensional drive. If successful, her ship would become the prototype for humanity's new fleet. A fleet that could move through space in ways the Council believed impossible. The Northern Lights slipped beneath the waves, vanishing from conventional detection systems. When it resurfaced, it would no longer be a mere test vessel, but the first of a new class of ships designed to change the balance of power among the stars on Mars. The red dust swirled around the entrance to Mining Complex 17 as Richard Brown guided his rover through the heavy security checkpoints. As colony administrator, Richard had used his position to gradually shift mining operations away from council-monitored areas. The official explanation was simple. They were following more promising mineral veins. The truth lay 200 meters below the surface, where the natural caverns had been expanded into massive chambers. Richard parked his rover and walked through the airlock into the main facility. Workers in heavy exoskeletons moved large equipment while engineers monitored construction progress on multiple levels. "How are we doing on the fabrication units?" Richard asked his deputy, Jack Wilson. Jack guided him toward the central platform overlooking the largest chamber. The first 3 units are operational. We've begun producing the components for the defense grid. Everything is being assembled on site to avoid transportation signatures. Richard nodded, watching the organized activity below. Generations of living in Mars' harsh environment had made the colonists tough and resourceful. When Earth had sent the coded warning about the Council's decision, not a single Martian had hesitated to join the resistance. "And the special project?" Richard asked quietly. Jack led him to a smaller, more heavily guarded section. Inside, a team of scientists worked around what appeared to be a miniature version of Frank Howard's dimensional drive. Dr. Howard sent the schematics last week. We've adapted it for the Martian environment. Initial tests show it's working even better than expected. Richard allowed himself a small smile. The Council thinks they know everything about physics. They've been telling us what's possible and what isn't since first contact. They never considered we might find another way. Back on Earth, Dr. Patricia Newman worked in her laboratory deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. The facility had been built inside a seamount, hidden from orbital detection by a kilometer of rock and water. Patricia adjusted her glasses as she studied. The holographic display showing the quantum network that connected all Council races. As one of Earth's leading experts in quantum entanglement, she had spent years analyzing the alien communication system. Now she was about to disrupt it. "Run Simulation 17 again," she instructed her team. The display changed, showing a cascade of effects as her firewall system interacted with the quantum network. Points of light representing communication. Nodes winked out in sequence. "Holding steady at 93% disruption," reported her assistant Paul Roberts. "Duration estimated at 76 hours before the Council can implement countermeasures." Patricia nodded, satisfied. "That should give our ships enough time to deploy. Let's prep the system for live testing." Firewall represented humanities. Best chance to blind the Council long enough to change the rules of engagement. If it worked, Council ships would be cut off from their command structure at the critical moment. In Washington, D.C., President Lavra Wilson met with her most trusted advisors in a room swept clean of all electronic devices. The information they discussed would travel only via secure quantum channels or face-to-face meetings. "The Council believes we're preparing for their arrival as a compliant subordinate species," she told the small group. "Our official communications reflect this." Meanwhile, Director Carter's security teams have identified and are monitoring all Council observers on Earth. Defense Secretary Eric Johnson spoke up. "What about the official diplomatic response?" "Miller is due to deliver it in 3 days. Ambassador Miller will present our formal objection but will indicate our intention to comply with Council directives," President Wilson replied. "This will buy us the time we need to complete preparations." "And if the Council suspects?" asked the Secretary of State. "Their psychology works against them," said Susan Carter from her position near the door. "The Arcadians particularly have never encountered serious resistance to their authority. They believe their technological superiority is absolute. The idea that a young species like ours could challenge them is outside their conceptual framework." President Wilson nodded. "We have one advantage they don't expect. They think they've controlled our technological development by feeding us carefully selected scientific principles. They don't realize we've been quietly working outside those principles for years." The meeting concluded with each member receiving their assignments for the next phase of preparation. As they dispersed, President Wilson stopped Susan Carter. "How close is Howard's drive to full deployment?" "The prototype is being installed on the Northern Light tomorrow. If it performs as expected, we can begin equipping other vessels immediately." Wilson nodded. "And our official delegation to the Council?" "Ambassador Miller returns to Earth tomorrow for consultation, then back to the Council with our response. He knows exactly what to say and how to say it. The Council will believe we're capitulating right up until the moment we don't." As night fell across a planet preparing for the greatest challenge in its history, millions of humans went about their lives unaware of the massive operation unfolding around them. For their protection, only those directly involved knew the full scope of humanity's response to the Council's declaration. In his workshop in Oregon, Frank Howard made final adjustments to the dimensional drive prototype as it hummed softly. On his workbench, "Let them think we're subordinate," he muttered to himself. "They'll learn soon enough what humans do when backed into a corner." Ambassador Alan Wright straightened his formal diplomatic jacket as he prepared to address the Galactic Council. The Grand Chamber looked even more imposing today, with representatives from all major council races present to witness Earth's formal response to subordination. At 57, Alan had replaced John Miller as Earth's senior diplomat after a carefully staged disagreement over strategy. The Council believed Alan was more accepting of humanity's new status. They were wrong. Alan stepped forward as his name was announced. His face showed exactly what the Council expected, reluctant acceptance mixed with a touch of fear. Behind this mask, his mind remained focused on the carefully crafted speech he would deliver. The speech contained embedded code phrases that would activate the final phase of Earth's response. Counselor Xtharian and the other high-ranking Arcadians watched from their elevated platform. Their body language suggested they expected no surprises. Alan began speaking in a voice that carried perfectly through the vast chamber. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I stand before you today representing Earth and all her colonies. We have carefully considered the Council's decision regarding our status in the galactic community." He paused, appearing to gather his courage. "While we respectfully maintain our belief that humanity has demonstrated peaceful intentions since first contact, we recognize the Council's authority in these matters." A subtle ripple of satisfaction moved through the Arcadian representatives. Other Council races showed mixed reactions, but none spoke out. Alan continued, his words triggering actions across the solar system with each carefully chosen phrase. "Earth acknowledges the Council's concerns about our developmental trajectory. We understand that younger species must sometimes be guided by those with greater experience." With these words, Linda Vasquez, commanding Earth's orbital defense platforms, initiated a carefully orchestrated series of system failures that appeared to be accidents to Council observers. Throughout the solar system, human operations began shutting down in apparent compliance with Council mandates. Mining facilities went offline, military vessels powered down, communication hubs fell silent. "We are prepared to accept appropriate oversight as we work toward a more integrated position within the galactic community," Alan said, triggering the activation of quantum entanglement communicators developed by Dr. Charles Simmons. These replaced standard channels and operated completely outside Council detection parameters. "Earth will open its facilities to Council representatives and adjust our resource management according to established protocols." This phrase activated the next phase. Military vessels equipped with Frank Howard's dimensional drives slipped into parallel space pockets where Council sensors couldn't penetrate. "We ask only for patience during this transition period, as adapting to such significant changes will require time." At these words, the Northern Light, now fully equipped with the dimensional drive prototype, disappeared from its monitored position near Jupiter and reappeared in a classified location beyond Neptune. Captain Lisa Garcia confirmed successful transition and sent the encrypted data back to Earth via quantum channel. Alan's speech lasted exactly 30 minutes. To Council observers, it represented humanity's capitulation. To Earth's forces, it contained 28 distinct command phrases that set in motion the most complex coordinated operation in human history. When Alan finished speaking, Counselor Xtharian rose to address him. "The Council acknowledges Earth's acceptance of its proper status. The transition fleet will arrive in your system in 15 standard cycles to begin implementation of oversight protocols. Until then, continue your preparation efforts." Alan bowed respectfully. "We look forward to a productive relationship under the Council's guidance." As he left the chamber, flanked by junior diplomats, Alan maintained his submissive posture until safely aboard the human diplomatic vessel. Once secure in his private quarters, he activated his quantum communicator. "Sunrise protocol complete, all command phrases delivered." President Wilson's voice came through clearly despite being 4 light years away. Confirmation received, Ambassador. All systems report successful activation. Return to Earth immediately. Meanwhile, on Earth, Council observers found a seemingly compliant population. A team of Arcadian representatives toured the Global Resource Management Agency, where William Jones presented detailed plans for restructuring Earth's mining and manufacturing capabilities to better serve Council needs. As you can see, William explained to the alien delegation, we've already begun adjusting production quotas in line with Council standards. The lead Arcadian, a female named Kryvax, nodded with satisfaction as she examined the data. Your cooperation is commendable, Director Jones. Many species resist the transition period more strongly. William smiled politely. We understand our place in the greater galactic community. Humanity has much to learn from the Council races. What Kryvax couldn't see was that the facilities she inspected were elaborate facades. The real production had moved to hidden locations weeks ago. The data she reviewed had been carefully crafted to show exactly what the Council expected to see. At the lunar base, Susan Carter met with her core team in a shielded command center. The room was packed with Earth's top military leaders and scientists. Ambassador Wright has delivered the activation codes, she announced. Operation Rising Tide is now fully engaged, status reports. The commander of Earth's space forces spoke first. All military vessels equipped with dimensional drives have successfully transitioned to parallel space. Council monitoring systems show them powered down in their assigned docking positions. Holographic projectors are maintaining visual confirmation of our compliance. The head of the Mars Defense Initiative reported next. Underground facilities are complete and fully operational. All critical personnel and technology have been relocated below the surface. Council observers continue to monitor empty complexes operating on automated systems. Dr. Patricia Newman provided her update via secure channel from her underwater base. Firewall system is at full operational status. We can deploy at a moment's notice with estimated 96 hours of effectiveness before Council countermeasures can be implemented. Susan nodded at each report. The extraction fleet arrives in 15 days. That gives us 2 weeks to complete final preparations. The President has authorized full deployment of all defensive systems at that time. One officer raised a concern. What if the Council sends an advanced scout? Our deception might not hold up to detailed inspection. We've considered that possibility, Susan replied. Frank Howard's dimensional technology allows us to detect any approaching vessel using conventional drive systems. If they send an advanced team, we'll know before they enter the system. On Mars, Richard Brown led a Council inspection team through Mining Complex 14. The aliens examined equipment and questioned workers about production schedules. None noticed that the machines they inspected were operating on automated programs, or that the workers they interviewed had been carefully coached. As you can see, Richard explained, we've reduced operations by 60% in compliance with Council directives. The remaining activity is focused on life support necessities. The Arcadian inspector made notes on a translucent tablet. Your cooperation will be noted in my report. Continue current production levels until the oversight team arrives to implement new protocols. Richard bowed slightly. Of course, Mars Colony exists to serve the greater good of the galactic community. After the inspection team departed, Richard returned to his office and activated his secure terminal. The screen showed the true state of Martian operations. Massive underground factories producing components for defense systems. Stockpiles of resources hidden from Council scans and training facilities where colonists prepared for resistance. Under the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Patricia Newman fine-tuned the firewall system with her team. The quantum disruption network had been tested successfully in isolated conditions. Now they prepared for full deployment against the Council's communication grid. The final simulations show 99% effectiveness, her assistant Paul reported. Council ships will be completely cut off from Central Command when we activate. Patricia studied the holographic display showing the complex web of quantum entanglements that connected Council vessels. Make sure the targeted disruption subroutines are properly calibrated. We want their military and administrative vessels affected first, with civilian communications as secondary targets. Across Earth and its colonies, similar scenes played out as humanity perfected its deception. On the surface, humans appeared to be accepting their subordinate status with reluctance but compliance. Beneath this veneer of acceptance, a massive resistance operation continued to grow in strength and capability. In his Oregon workshop, Frank Howard supervised the installation of his dimensional drive technology in a second prototype vessel. The small ship, barely 30 meters long, represented the next generation of human spacecraft. Unlike the Northern Light, this vessel was designed purely for combat, with weapon systems that operated on principles the Council believed impossible for humans to understand. Initial test phase complete, reported his chief engineer. The massive Council extraction fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system exactly on schedule. 27 enormous harvester ships designed to efficiently strip planets of valuable materials moved in perfect formation. They were accompanied by just 5 military escort vessels. The Arcadian commanders saw no need for a larger protective force when dealing with a compliant subordinate species. Admiral Krex, the fleet commander, stood on the bridge of the lead vessel and studied the sensor readings of the human solar system. Everything appeared exactly as expected. Earth's defensive platforms were powered down. Human military ships remained docked at their stations. Mining operations across the asteroid belt showed minimal activity levels. Status report, Krex ordered. His second in command. All ships report successful transition to normal space. Drive systems cooling as expected. Resource scanners show high concentrations of valuable materials throughout this system. Particularly promising readings from the third planet. Krex nodded with satisfaction. The humans had accepted their place just as all other young species eventually did. The Council's decision had been correct, as always. Set course for Earth orbit, standard approach pattern. Notify their authorities of our arrival. The massive fleet began its journey inward toward the blue planet. In the hidden command center beneath the lunar surface, Susan Carter watched. The holographic display showing the Council fleet's position and course. Around her, Earth's military leaders observed intense silence. The moment they had prepared for had arrived. They're following the expected approach vector, reported the tactical officer. Minimal defensive posture. No indication they suspect anything? Susan nodded. How many personnel on the harvester ships? Scans indicate skeleton crews only. Standard procedure for extraction operations in compliant systems. Most functions are automated. Susan turned to face the assembled commanders. This confirms our intelligence. They've sent harvesters with minimal protection, expecting no resistance. She activated her communication link to the President. Madam President, the Council fleet has arrived. Configuration matches our projections. Request permission to proceed with firewall activation. President Wilson's voice came through clearly. Permission granted, Director Carter. Proceed with the operation. Susan turned to Dr. Patricia Newman, who had joined them from her underwater base. Doctor, initiate firewall. Patricia entered a series of commands on her secure terminal. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the quantum disruption system powered up to full capacity. Thousands of precisely calibrated devices began generating interference patterns that targeted the Council's communication network. Throughout the solar system, the effect was immediate and dramatic. On the bridge of the lead Council ship, alarms suddenly blared as communication systems failed. What's happening? Demanded Admiral Krex. His technology officer worked frantically at the control panel. All quantum communication channels are experiencing disruption. We've lost contact with the Council and with our escort vessels. Impossible. Krex said, switch to backup systems. Backup systems are also affected. The disruption appears to be targeting all quantum entanglement frequencies. For the first time in his long career, Krex felt a touch of uncertainty. This type of widespread communication failure had never occurred before. Back at Lunar Command, Susan received confirmation of Firewall's success. All Council ships have lost communication capabilities. Estimated 96 hours before they can implement countermeasures. She opened a channel to Captain George Taylor. Captain Taylor, the Aegis platform is authorized to deploy. In orbit around Earth, the seemingly powered-down defense platform Aegis suddenly came to life. Its advanced stealth systems had kept it hidden from Council scans. Now it revealed its true capabilities. Captain George Taylor issued commands to his crew: activate targeting systems. Prepare to reveal position on my mark. The Council fleet continued its approach, now moving more cautiously due to their communication difficulties. Admiral Krex ordered increased sensor sweeps of the area, still believing the situation to be a technical malfunction rather than a deliberate attack. Harvester ships to maintain formation. Military escorts to defensive positions. Continue approach to Earth. The lead military vessel moved slightly ahead of the formation, its sensors now operating at maximum capacity. It detected nothing unusual until the moment Captain Taylor gave his command. Mark, the Aegis platform and 12 other previously hidden defense platforms suddenly appeared around the Council fleet, having emerged from the dimensional pockets where they had been concealed. Each platform was heavily armed with weapon systems based on principles the Council had never encountered. Captain Taylor opened a communication channel on all frequencies used by Council vessels. Attention Council extraction fleet. This is Captain George Taylor of Earth Defense Force. You have entered sovereign human space without permission. You have 30 seconds to power down all systems and prepare for boarding. Admiral Krex stared at the view screen in shock as the human defense platforms appeared seemingly from nowhere. His tactical officer shouted, "Unknown vessels surrounding our position, weapon systems online and targeting our ships." "Impossible," Krex said again, but the evidence before him contradicted his belief. The humans had somehow concealed these platforms from the Council's advanced detection systems. Even more disturbing, the energy readings from their weapons indicated technology that should be beyond human capability. Krex had to make a decision quickly, with no communication to Council headquarters and facing unknown but clearly advanced weapons. He chose the only logical option: power down offensive systems. Maintain life support and stabilization only. His order was transmitted to the other Council vessels, which quickly complied. The harvester ships, designed for resource extraction rather than combat, had no means to resist in any case. Within minutes, the entire Council fleet had powered down as ordered. Susan Carter watched the Council ship's energy signatures fade to minimal levels on her display. All Council vessels have complied. Boarding teams are launching now. She turned to President Wilson's image on the communication screen. Phase 1 complete, Madam President. The extraction fleet is secured. President Wilson nodded. Excellent work, Director. Begin Phase 2 immediately. Phase 2 began with the sudden appearance of the Northern Light near the Mars orbit. Captain Lisa Garcia sent the confirmation signal that activated 30 other vessels equipped with Frank Howard's dimensional drive technology. These ships had been hiding in parallel space, undetectable by conventional sensors. Now they emerged in key positions throughout the solar system, revealing a human military force the Council had never suspected existed. At the Galactic Council headquarters, Ambassador Alan Wright requested an emergency session. When the Council members assembled, Wright's demeanor had completely changed from his previous appearance. Gone was the submissive diplomat accepting humanity's subordinate status. In his place stood a confident representative of a sovereign power. "Honored Council members," Wright began, his voice firm and clear. "I speak to you now as the representative of Earth, not as a subordinate but as an equal. At this moment, your extraction fleet in the Sol system has been detained by human defense forces." Councilor Zex Therian rose to his full height, multiple limbs gesturing in agitation. "This is outrageous. Such defiance will be met with the full military might of the Council." Wright remained calm. "I suggest you attempt to contact your fleet before making threats, Counselor." The Arcadian commander in charge of Council security tried to establish communication with the extraction fleet, then with Council military headquarters. No response came through on any channel. Wright continued as the Council members realized their communications had failed. Earth rejects the classification of subordinate species. We demand immediate recognition as a sovereign power with full Council membership rights. To demonstrate our seriousness, we have temporarily disabled the Council's quantum communication network and detained your extraction fleet. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. Such defiance was unprecedented. More troubling to many Council members was the implication that humans had technology capable of disrupting quantum communications, something that should have been impossible for such a young species. Counselor Xtharian finally restored order. How dare you threaten this council? The Arcadian battle fleet will reduce your world to ash for this insolence. Wright shook his head. I'm afraid your battle fleet will encounter the same difficulties as your extraction fleet, Counselor. We've been monitoring your military deployments since first contact. We know exactly where your ships are and how to neutralize them. He paused to let his words sink in. Earth does not seek conflict. We wish only to be recognized as equals and to take our rightful place among the stars. The choice now is yours. Accept us as partners or face a conflict with an outcome you cannot predict. In the Sol system, human boarding teams secured the Council vessels one by one. The alien crews, mostly Arcadians with some representatives from other Council races, were treated respectfully but firmly. Each ship was carefully examined, its technology studied by human scientists eager to compare Council systems. The Galactic Council chambers had never witnessed such chaos in its 5,000-year history. Representatives from 47 spacefaring civilizations argued loudly as reports of human actions spread throughout the galaxy. The Arcadian delegation demanded immediate military action. The Tellurian Alliance Council cautioned. Smaller powers watched nervously, many secretly pleased to see the dominant Arcadians challenged. Counselor Xtharian struggled to maintain order, his 7 limbs gesturing for silence. When the chamber finally quieted, he fixed his large eyes on Ambassador Wright. Your species has committed an act of war against this council. The consequences will be severe. Wright remained perfectly calm. With respect, Counselor, Earth has committed no act of war. We have simply refused to accept an unjust classification. The Council vessels in our system have not been harmed, merely detained. Their crews are being treated with full diplomatic courtesy. Another Council member, a reptilian being from the Draxan hegemony, spoke up. How has your species achieved this level of technology? The dimensional principles employed by your vessels should be beyond your understanding. Wright smiled slightly. Your assumption reveals the fundamental error in the Council's approach to humanity. You believe technological development follows a single, predictable path. We discovered alternative approaches that your civilizations overlooked. The Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Arcadians had controlled technological development across the galaxy for millennia by carefully managing what scientific principles were shared with younger species. The idea that humans had found different paths to advance technology threatened the very foundation of their power. At that moment, a ripple of surprise moved through the chamber as a new vessel appeared in Council space. The ship was the Northern Light, having traveled from the Sol system to the Council headquarters in mere hours, a journey that should have taken weeks. Captain Lisa Garcia's voice came through on all Council communication channels. This is Captain Lisa Garcia of the Earth vessel Northern Light. We bring evidence of humanity's peaceful intentions and technological capabilities for the Council's consideration. The appearance of a human ship in the heart of Council space, bypassing all defensive systems, sent shock waves through the assembly. No species had ever demonstrated such capabilities without using the established transit lanes monitored by Council forces. Counselor Xtharian turned to his security chief. How did they penetrate our defenses? The security chief looked stunned. Unknown, Counselor. Their vessel did not use conventional faster-than-light travel. Our sensors detected no approach at all. It simply appeared. In the Sol system, Susan Carter oversaw the careful study of the captured Council vessels. The Harvester ships contained technology Earth scientists had long theorized but never seen implemented. Of particular interest was the quantum entanglement communication system that allowed instant messaging across vast distances. Dr. Patricia Newman had disrupted this network with her firewall system, but now she had actual Council technology to examine. "The principles are similar to what we expected," she told Susan as they walked through the captured command ship. "But their implementation is different. They've optimized for efficiency rather than security. That's why our disruption was so effective." Susan nodded. "What about their weapon systems?" "Impressive but predictable. They've refined the same basic technology for centuries without fundamental innovation. Our dimensional phase shifting makes most of their targeting systems useless against our ships." Admiral Krex watched the humans examining his vessel with growing unease. His entire career had been built on the assumption of Archidian technological superiority. Seeing humans so quickly understand and evaluate Council technology challenged everything he believed. "Your species should not be capable of this," he said to Susan when she approached his containment area. Susan studied the alien admiral. "That belief is exactly why your Council failed in its assessment of humanity. Throughout our history, humans have been told what we couldn't do. We built flying machines when experts said it was impossible. We split the atom when it was deemed theoretical. We cured diseases pronounced incurable. Telling humans something is impossible has always been the surest way to ensure we achieve it." At the Galactic Council headquarters, Ambassador Wright continued his address. "Earth proposes a new relationship with the Council. We reject subordinate status but do not seek dominance. We offer partnership and exchange based on mutual respect." Multiple Council representatives had shifted their positions during Wright's speech. The demonstration of human capabilities had changed the political dynamics instantly. Several previously neutral species now openly supported Earth's position. The representative from the Tellurian Alliance, a relatively young species that had faced similar classification challenges, stood to address the Council. "The Tellurian Alliance supports Earth's petition for full Council membership. The humans have demonstrated both the technological capability and the restraint required of a mature species. They could have used their advantages to attack, but chose diplomacy instead." More voices joined in support. The Archidians found themselves increasingly isolated as other Council races recognized the changing balance of power. Even some of their traditional allies began distancing themselves from the hardline position. Councillor Zxtharian conferred urgently with other Archidian leaders before rising to address the chamber again. "This Council will recess for deliberation. All representatives will reconvene in 3 standard cycles to hear our decision." As the Council members filed out, many approached Ambassador Wright. To establish private communication channels with Earth, the political realignment was happening faster than anyone had anticipated. When Wright returned to the Northern Light, Captain Lisa Garcia greeted him with news from home. "The President reports all Council vessels secured. No casualties on either side. Frank Howard has completed testing on the next generation of dimensional drives. Production is scaling up rapidly." Wright nodded, satisfied with humanity's position. "The Council is fracturing along predictable lines. The Archidians can't maintain their hardline stance with so many defections. They'll have to negotiate." 3 days later, the Council reconvened. The chamber was tense as Councillor Zxtharian took the central position. His body language suggested internal conflict as he prepared to speak. "After extensive deliberation, this Council has reached a decision regarding Earth's status." He paused, all 7 limbs perfectly still in what humans had learned was an Archidian expression of formal pronouncement. "The classification of humanity as a subordinate species is hereby rescinded. Earth will be granted provisional full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and responsibilities such status entails." A ripple of approval moved through many Council representatives. Ambassador Wright stepped forward. "Earth accepts this decision and looks forward to productive cooperation with all Council races." Zxtharian wasn't finished. However, the Council requires assurances regarding the technologies humans have developed, particularly the dimensional drive and communication disruption systems. Such technologies could destabilize established galactic order if widely deployed. Wright had anticipated this concern. Earth is prepared to share certain technological developments through controlled exchange programs. In return, we expect full access to Council scientific databases without the filtering applied to subordinate species. The negotiations continued for hours, establishing the framework for humanity's new relationship with the galactic community. When Wright finally returned to Earth, he brought with him a treaty that transformed humanity's position among the stars. Frank Howard found himself appointed to lead the Technological Exchange Commission. The unassuming engineer from Oregon was now responsible for determining which human innovations would be shared with alien civilizations. In his first meeting with Council scientists, he made Earth's position clear. What you've seen represents only a fraction of what humans have discovered. We believe cooperation benefits everyone more than domination ever could. President Wilson addressed the United Nations the day after the treaty was signed. Her speech was broadcast to every human. Settlement from Earth to the outer colonies. Fellow citizens of Earth and her colonies, today marks a new chapter in human history. We have claimed our rightful place among the stars, not through conquest, but through ingenuity and determination. The Galactic Council has recognized what we have always known: humanity will not be subordinated. In Lunar Command, Susan Carter watched the Council vessels depart the solar system. Their crews had been released with their ships intact but without the resource harvesting equipment they had brought to strip Earth's resources. Admiral Krex had left with a new understanding of the species he had so gravely underestimated. "Do you think they've really accepted us?" asked her deputy. Susan considered the question carefully. "The Arcadians haven't accepted us, they've simply recognized they can't control us. That's enough for now. The other Council races are more pragmatic. Many of them have lived under Arcadian dominance for centuries. They see us as potential allies in reshaping the balance of power." As Earth began its integration,